It started on a quiet morning. No alarms, no warnings, just the kind of calm that made the world feel safe. Children hurried to school with backpacks too heavy for their small shoulders. Cars lined the streets, horns blaring, people shouting into phones. Somewhere, a street musician played a slow tune on a saxophone. The world, as always, was alive, noisy, busy, human. And then came the sound. At first, it was soft, a low hum, buried under the sounds of city life. Only a few people noticed. A woman pausing mid-step, a boy looking up from his bicycle, a pilot hearing something strange over the radio. The hum grew louder, deep, rhythmic, unnatural. It was not the sound of thunder, not the sound of wind. It was as if the earth itself was whispering through steel and stone. People looked up. The clouds were moving, twisting, swirling in shapes they had never seen before. The white sky turned a strange, sickly gray. Long spirals began to form, spinning faster and faster until the air itself seemed to bend. And then, all at once, the sky broke. A long, jagged crack split across the heavens, stretching from one horizon to the other. It looked like shattered glass, glowing with blinding white light. The hum turned into a roar. Buildings trembled. Windows shattered. Birds fell from the air. People screamed. Some fell to their knees, praying. Others ran without knowing where to go. From the crack came light, bright, pulsing, alive. The light wasn't just light. It had weight, like it could crush the world beneath it. And then, something moved inside. A shadow formed, large and uneven. It twisted, pushing against the edges of the crack until the sky itself seemed to stretch around it. The first ship crawled out, dark metal glistening like oil, longer than mountains, silent as death. For a moment, no one made a sound. People everywhere, from New York to Beijing, from London to Rio, stood frozen, staring at the impossible thing hanging in the sky. Then another ship appeared, and another, dozens, hundreds. Each one slipped through the tear in the sky, spreading out across the world like black wings unfolding. The sunlight dimmed. Shadows stretched for miles. Cameras caught it all. News stations went live, voices shaking as they reported what they couldn't understand. Social media exploded with panic. Videos of the sky tear filled every screen. But then the screens began to die. Phones buzzed and shut off. Satellites blinked out one by one. Even the radio waves began to twist, breaking apart into static and whispers. Planes dropped from the clouds like stones. The engines wouldn't restart. People screamed as they saw them falling. 1, 2, 10, exploding in streaks of fire above cities. The hum changed again. It became slower, deeper, louder. It wasn't random. It had rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. And then, the ship stopped. They hovered, perfectly still, across every sky on Earth. Not moving, not attacking, just watching. 4 minutes, long, terrible minutes, the world waited. Governments tried to reach them. The military sent out radio messages in every language. We welcome you. We mean no harm. Identify yourselves. No answer. All over the world, people stood outside their homes, staring up at the silent giants. Some cried. Some waved flags. Some whispered that it was the end of days. The ships didn't move. Until they did. The sky above the Pacific Ocean flashed white, brighter than the sun. A beam of light shot down from one of the ships, striking the water. The sea boiled in an instant. Steam rose for miles. Whole islands disappeared in seconds. Then came another beam, and another. Tokyo vanished beneath a wave of fire. New York trembled as the ground cracked open. London skies turned blood red. Power grids failed. Cities went dark. The moon, once bright, flickered, a pale red scar floating above the chaos. No one could stop it. No one even understood what they were seeing. Across the world, cameras still rolling on backup power caught the same horrifying image, a white beam tearing through the earth like a blade of light, and behind it, shadows moving within the ships, shapes that didn't look human at all. The light faded. The hum fell silent, and the world, what was left of it, was quiet again. Smoke rose over burning cities. Ash fell like snow. Oceans hissed where they touched molten land. Then, out of the silence, the hum began again. Slow, steady, deeper than before. Dr. Lena Ortiz, an astrophysicist watching from her observatory in Chile, stared at the readings on her screen. The frequency was repeating. It wasn't a random pattern. It was a sequence. A message. She whispered, almost to herself. It's a signal. They are talking to each other. Her assistant looked at her with fear in his eyes. What are they saying? She swallowed hard, reading the wave patterns again. The meaning was clear. Simple. They are saying, the harvest begins. Outside, another crack formed in the sky, smaller this time, but spreading fast. The hum became a roar once more, and from the light, more ships emerged, black and endless, crawling out of the broken heavens. That was the moment humanity understood the truth. They weren't visitors. They weren't explorers. They were hunters, and Earth was their next feast. The world had only hours to breathe before the next wave began. The ships that had hovered in silence suddenly came alive, their dark hulls rippled with lines of white light, spreading like veins across their surfaces. People watched from rooftops, from burning streets, from bunkers deep underground. Some prayed, some recorded it on dying phones, but no one truly understood what was coming. In Washington, the last remaining satellites caught something strange, a pattern of energy spreading from each ship, like a web connecting them across the planet. Military analysts called it synchronization. No one knew what it meant until it was too late. The first drones appeared. They were small, sleek, and fast, like metal insects with glowing blue eyes. They poured out of the alien ships in swarms, moving with perfect coordination. They didn't fly like machines, they moved like living things. Their wings sliced the air with a high-pitched scream that made blood run cold. Cities fell into chaos. People ran in every direction, trampling each other in panic. The drones didn't fire at random. They targeted communication towers, power plants, and military bases. Within minutes, entire nations went dark. In the middle of the destruction, Captain Ryan Hale was trapped in the ruins of Chicago. He had been a soldier all his life, but nothing could prepare him for this. He and a handful of survivors, 5 soldiers, 2 civilians, and a medic, hid beneath the wreckage of a collapsed freeway. They could hear the drones outside, scanning the ruins, their eyes glowing through the smoke. Hale whispered into his broken radio, "This is Echo Unit. Is anyone alive out there?" Only static answered. A child cried beside him, clutching a small stuffed bear. Hale looked down and forced a small smile. "Hey, it's all right. We're not done yet," he said, though his hands trembled. Outside, the drone stopped moving for a long moment. There was silence. Then a voice echoed through the air. Not human, not mechanical. It was something in between cold, lead, and emotionless. Harvest Phase 1 complete. Begin acquisition. The ground shook. The drones spread out, shining bright beams of blue light over the streets. Anyone caught in the light vanished. No explosion, no scream. Just gone. Erased like they had never existed. Hale peeked through a gap in the rubble and watched as whole groups of people disappeared into the light. The drones were collecting them, not killing them. He turned to his team. "We move now. Stay low." They crawled through the ruins, careful not to make a sound. But one of the soldiers tripped, his rifle clattering against the debris. In an instant, 3 drones turned their glowing eyes toward them. "Run!" Hale shouted. They sprinted through the shattered streets as beams of blue light cut through the air. Behind them, one soldier was caught mid-step and vanished. The others kept running until they reached an old subway entrance. They dived inside, slamming the steel gate shut. In the darkness below, the survivors caught their breath. The medic's voice shook. "What do they want with us?" Hale looked at her, then at the ceiling above where the sound of drones echoed faintly. "I don't know," he said, "but they are not here to talk." Miles away, in a secret observatory in the Andes Mountains, Dr. Lena Ortiz was still trying to decode the alien signal. She had managed to isolate the pattern of the hum that covered the planet. It wasn't just sound. It was a pulse, a form of communication that traveled through the atmosphere itself. She stared at the data on her screen, her eyes wide. The pulses weren't random. They were counting down. A timer. Her assistant leaned over her shoulder. Counting down to what? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked out the window at the sky above. The lights of distant ships glowed faintly behind the clouds. She felt her heart freeze. To the next phase, she whispered. In orbit, something massive stirred behind the original fleet. That a structure the size of a continent began to unfold from the sky tear, its surface shining with impossible light. That it wasn't a ship. It was a machine. A harvester. The hum grew louder. The earth itself seemed to vibrate as the structure extended long tendrils of energy downward, touching the oceans, the deserts, the mountains. In Chicago's ruins, Captain Hale and his team watched as the night sky turned white. The harvester's beams reached the horizon like spears of light. The ground beneath their feet began to shake violently. One of the soldiers muttered, "We can't fight that." Hale clenched his fists. "We don't need to fight it," he said. "We just need to survive it." But deep down, even he wasn't sure that was possible. The air grew hotter, the sky screamed. And then, in one blinding instant, the second strike began. The second strike shattered everything left of human order. Cities burned across every continent. The alien harvesters stood tall in the sky, their beams digging deep into the Earth's crust, pulling up columns of glowing blue energy that no human science could explain. Mountains cracked, seas boiled. The air itself seemed to hum with power. But in the middle of all that chaos, humanity refused to die. All over the planet, soldiers, engineers, and civilians began to fight back. They used whatever they had: old tanks, drones, homemade explosives, even simple rifles. Every weapon that could fired bullets and rockets streak across the sky. Useless against alien shields, but it didn't matter. People fought because it was all they could do. In a bunker beneath London, the surviving world leaders met for the last time. They spoke through broken radio lines and flickering screens. They called it Operation Dawnfire, a global counterattack, a desperate gamble. They would strike at the heart of one of the alien ships using the last nuclear missiles still under human control. While politicians argued, Captain Ryan Hale prepared his team in the ruins of Chicago. He had managed to reconnect an old military transmitter and was finally hearing voices from across the country. Resistance groups were forming everywhere, small cells, broken units, but determined. A voice came through the static. "Echo Unit, this is Phoenix Command. We're live in Denver. What's your status?" Hale grabbed the microphone. "Holding position. We have civilians. Repeat, civilians in our group, requesting orders." The voice replied, "Hold on, Captain. We're planning a strike. You'll be part of it." The message gave Hale something he hadn't felt in days: hope. At the same time, far away in her underground lab, Dr. Lena Ortiz worked without rest. She had mapped out the alien signal fully now. It was not a single tone but a network of frequencies, each ship connected, each drone controlled through a synchronized pulse. If that pulse could be interrupted, even for seconds, the aliens could lose coordination. That might be enough for humans to land a real blow. She broadcast her findings on the emergency military channel. "This isn't just an invasion," she said, her voice tired but clear. "It's a system. A living signal. If we can break it, we can make them bleed." Within hours, the human plan began. In a world already on fire, missiles launched from hidden silos, submarines, an aircraft that barely worked, satellites gone, GPS dead, everything aimed by hand, by instinct, by human will. The sky lit up with trails of smoke and fire as Earth fought back. And for one perfect moment, it worked. One of the alien ships was hit directly by a nuclear warhead. The explosion ripped through the air, blinding and beautiful. The massive ship cracked apart in the sky, burning as it fell. The world saw it happen live on emergency broadcast. A single alien Titan crashing into the ocean, sending waves hundreds of meters high. People cheered, they screamed, they cried. Hope returned. But it didn't last. Minutes later, the other ships responded. A pulse wave erupted from a fleet, invisible but unstoppable. Every electronic device on the planet fried instantly. Satellites dead, radios silent, cars, planes, tanks, everything stopped working. In a single breath, the world went dark. Operation Dawnfire had failed. Captain Hale watched the power die in his base. The lights flickered out, and silence filled the room. Only the faint glow of fire from the streets lit their faces. Hale slammed his fist into the wall. "They shut us down," he growled. His medic looked at him. What do we do now? Hale stared at the black sky outside. We fight the old way. With that, he gathered his team. They scavenged weapons, knives, shotguns, anything that didn't rely on power. They moved through the ruins, hunting drones by sound, ambushing them in alleys and tunnels. They learned that when a drone's shell cracked, it bled a strange silver liquid that hissed when it touched the ground. Hale collected some of it in a glass vial that he didn't know why, only that it might matter later. Meanwhile, Dr. Ortiz's lab was dark too, but she still had one thing the aliens hadn't taken: her mind. She realized something. The pulse wave wasn't just destroying technology, that IT was changing the planet's electromagnetic field itself. The aliens were reshaping Earth to suit them. She had to stop it before it became permanent. She pulled an old map from the wall and marked the last known location of an ancient military complex. The Deep Earth Array, a research base built decades ago to study cosmic radiation. It was deep enough underground to survive the pulse. That if she could reach it, she could send a counter-signal strong enough to disrupt the alien network. She picked up her backpack, filled it with notes, batteries, and the last working radio she had. She looked up at the glowing cracks still burning in the sky. You came for our world, she whispered. Now you'll see what we do when you take everything from us. Outside, the horizon burned, the sky tore again, and humanity, beaten and blooded, began its next move, not to survive, but to strike back. Dr. Lena Ortiz drove through the wasteland in silence. The world above had fallen apart. The sky glowed faint red, cracked with strange light that pulsed like veins of a dying planet. The air was thick with ash, and every now and then, distant flashes marked another city falling. Her Jeep, one of the few machines still working thanks to old analog parts, rattled across the broken highway. She hadn't slept in 2 days. The radio was dead. The only sound was the low hum coming from the sky. The alien signal, constant, endless. She kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other on a small metal box beside her. It was her life's work. The portable receiver she'd built from scraps. It could still pick up the alien frequency, faint but clear. The pattern hadn't stopped since the invasion began. Each pulse repeated at perfect intervals, like the ticking of a clock. Only now, she noticed something new between the pulses, short bursts of sound, almost like whispers. When she slowed the playback down, they formed a message. It wasn't just noise. It was communication. The aliens were talking to each other. She didn't know what they were saying, but every instinct told her it wasn't good. By nightfall, she reached the mountains. The road ended miles before her destination, so she left the Jeep and continued on foot. The air grew colder, the sky brighter. The tier above the world seemed closer here, almost alive, its light painting the rocks in strange silver patterns. She climbed higher, her breath fogging, her legs shaking with exhaustion. Finally, through the mist, she saw it, the Deep Earth Array. It was built into the side of the mountain, a forgotten bunker sealed decades ago. The massive doors were rusted, but still intact. She pried them open with a crowbar and stepped inside. The air was cold and dry. The walls were covered in dust and cobwebs, but the structure had survived. The array had been designed to study deep space radiation back in the 2030s, but now it was humanity's only hope. Deep inside, she found the main console still functional thanks to its old analog power grid. She brushed away the dust and switched it on. The lights flickered weakly, humming to life. She smiled for the first time in days. She connected her receiver to the system and began recording the alien frequency in full detail. 4 hours. She worked, her eyes locked on the shifting patterns across the screen. Then, she froze. The frequency wasn't just random data. It was changing. It was adjusting to something. It was responding to her. She turned down the volume, heart pounding. No, she whispered. You can't hear me, can you? But the signal pulsed faster, stronger. The speakers hissed, and a voice came through. Not human, not mechanical, but something in between, deep, lead, echoing from the walls. You are seen. Ortiz jumped back. The voice wasn't coming from the radio anymore. It was coming from everywhere. The floor, the walls, even the air. Your world is finished, it said. The harvest continues. You cannot stop it. She stared at the glowing screen and whispered, maybe not, but I can make you bleed. With shaking hands, She began typing commands into the console. She adjusted the frequency, creating a reverse pattern, a pulse that could overload their network for just a few seconds. IT wouldn't destroy them, but it could reveal their central control point. She needed that location. IT was the only way humanity could strike back. Outside the array, thunder rolled across the mountains. Though no storm was there, the alien ships shifted above, their shadows blotting out the stars. They could feel her interference. Far below in the valleys, Captain Ryan Hale and his surviving unit were moving toward the same mountain range. They had intercepted one of Ortiz's emergency beacons by pure luck. IT was weak, but it was human, and that was enough. Hale led the survivors across the dark wilderness, following the signal through fire and ruin. They reached the foot of the mountain just as the ground began to quake. The sky rippled with blue light. A massive ship was descending directly over the array, its engines screaming like 1,000 storms. Inside, Ortiz saw the readings spike. Her pulse wave had worked. The alien network was surging with interference. Their system was exposed. She saw it clearly now on her screen, a single coordinate flashing among the data points, repeating over and over. It was a location far beyond Earth's orbit. A command hub hidden in the outer solar system. She copied the coordinates onto her drive and disconnected the system. The mountain shook harder now. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Dust filled the air. She grabbed her pack and ran toward the exit. But the doors outside were already glowing with blue light. The aliens had arrived. A deep rumble filled the tunnel as drones flooded the entrance, their lights cutting through the dark. She fired her pistol, the bullets bouncing harmlessly off their armor. She turned and ran deeper into the base, heart pounding. At that same moment, Hale's team reached the outer gate. They saw the ships above, the mountain burning with alien fire. "We're too late," one soldier said. Hale stared at the inferno. "Not yet," he replied, grabbing his rifle. "We get her out." They charged up the path, weapons blazing. The aliens turned their attention toward them, giving Ortiz a narrow window to escape. She ran through a side tunnel, the data drive clutched to her chest, every step echoing like a heartbeat. Behind her, the array's power core began to overload. The last thing she heard before she jumped into the night air was the voice again, whispering through the wind. "You cannot stop the harvest." But as the array exploded behind her, lighting up the mountains like a second sun, Dr. Lena Ortiz smiled through the dust and flames. "Watch me," she whispered. The explosion from the deep Earth array lit up the night sky like a second sunrise. The blast rolled across the mountains, shaking the earth for miles around. Dr. Lena Ortiz lay half-buried under dirt and metal, coughing, gasping for air. She could still feel the heat from the blast against her skin. But she was alive somehow. She looked down and saw the small data drive clutched in her hand, the one that contained the coordinates of the alien command hub. She smiled weakly. IT had survived too. Not far away, Captain Ryan Hale and his squad stumbled through the smoke, dragging each other up the rocky path. The explosion had knocked them off their feet, but they were close enough to see the whole mountain collapse into a firestorm. Hale's voice cracked through the static of his broken radio. "Ortiz, do you copy? We're here." No answer. Then, faintly through the haze, he heard coughing. They ran toward the sound and found her lying near a broken boulder. Hale knelt beside her. "You're a hard one to kill, Doctor." She smiled through the dust. "You took your time." They pulled her to her feet and guided her down the mountain. She told them everything. The array, the signal, the coordinates of the alien hub in deep space. If they could send that data to what was left of the global defense network, humanity might finally have a target. But something about the coordinates bothered her. They were too precise, too familiar. She'd seen that region of space before, in her old research files. Years ago, when she first picked up the strange signal, she dismissed it as background radiation. But now she realized it wasn't background at all. Someone had known about it long before the invasion. By the time the group reached a ruined military outpost in the valley below, Ortiz had pieced the truth together. The invasion hadn't been random. The aliens hadn't just found Earth. They had been invited. Inside the outpost, old power generators hummed faintly, providing just enough energy for the remaining communication systems. Hale's soldiers worked to repair a broken transmitter while Ortiz examined the old records on the base's computer. The files were fragmented, but one name kept appearing in every log: General Marcus Crane. He had been the head of Earth's Global Defense Command, one of the first to respond when the initial energy readings appeared weeks before the sky tore open. He was also one of the first to vanish when the attacks began. Hale stood beside her, his expression dark. I served under Crane in the Pacific. If he's still alive, he's either hiding or he's part of this. Before Ortiz could answer, the monitor flickered to life. An emergency broadcast appeared on the cracked screen. The image was grainy, but the voice was clear. General Crane stood in front of an alien backdrop, the sky behind him glowing with the same blue light that powered the ships. People of Earth, his voice echoed, calm and cold. Your struggle is over. Humanity has failed itself for centuries. War, greed, chaos. The ones who came are here to save what's left. Stand down. Accept their guidance. Evolution is at hand. Ortiz stared in horror. Is working with them. The feed zoomed out, showing Crane standing beside one of the tall alien figures. A towering being of black armor and glowing eyes, the alien placed a clawed hand on Crane's shoulder as he continued to speak. They chose me to lead the transition. Those who resist will be reprocessed. Those who surrender will ascend. Hale slammed his fist into the console. Ascend. He sold us out. Ortiz watched carefully. She noticed something strange about Crane's eyes. They glowed faintly blue. Like the drone, she realized what had happened. He wasn't just a traitor, he had been changed. Outside, thunder rumbled. The alien ships above the region began to move again. The betrayal was complete. Hale turned to his squad. We send this message to every survivor out there. No one listens to Crane. No one surrenders. We fight. They broadcast a message across all remaining human frequencies. Hale's voice, hoarse but powerful, echoed through the static of countless broken radios across the world. This is Captain Ryan Hale of the Human Resistance. Do not believe the lies. We are still alive. We are still fighting. Humanity doesn't kneel. Not today. Not ever. That single message spread like fire across the ruins of the earth. From the deserts of Africa to the frozen cities of the north, survivors began to rise again, men and women, soldiers and civilians, even children with makeshift weapons, all united by one cause: to take their planet back. Dr. Ortiz uploaded the coordinates of the alien command hub into the system. If they could find a way to reach it or disrupt it remotely, the aliens' control network might fall apart. But she knew they'd need more than courage, they'd need power, the kind only the Deep Earth Array could generate. And that was gone. She'd have to find another way. As she stared at the flickering screen, a final line of code appeared on the display. Something that hadn't been there before. A transmission, weak but real. It was coming from orbit, and it was signed with one name: Crane. It read simply, "You can't win. Humanity was chosen to serve, not to fight." Ortiz deleted the message and whispered under her breath, "We'll see about that." Above them, the sky glowed brighter as alien ships began to gather again. Hale loaded his rifle and looked at Ortiz. "Whatever comes next, Doctor, we make them regret ever coming here." She nodded, gripping the data drive tighter. "Then let's make history." The message spread faster than fire in dry grass. Within hours, Hale's transmission had reached the scattered remains of humanity across the globe. In bunkers, caves, ruined cities, and ships drifting on dying oceans, people heard the same words again and again. Humanity doesn't kneel. It was enough to light a spark where only ashes remained. In the underground tunnels of old London, survivors gathered around broken screens and cracked radios. They had no weapons, no power, and almost no food. But they had hope again. The same thing happened in New York, in Tokyo, in Cairo. Small pockets of resistance began to form. Men and women armed with whatever they could find. They called themselves the Storm, because they were coming for everything the invaders had taken. Dr. Ortiz and Captain Hale watched the movement grow through intercepted transmissions in the mountain outposts. Hale was proud but cautious. "Hope's a good thing," he said, "but it gets people killed if we don't give them a plan." Ortiz nodded, staring at the blinking data drive on the desk. "We have the plan," she said. "We just don't have the means." The coordinates on the drive still glowed faintly on the monitor. The alien command hub somewhere beyond the orbit of Neptune. It was a massive station, according to the intercepted scans, and it was the source of the energy field controlling all alien ships. If they could destroy it, The invasion might crumble, but they needed a way to get there. Hale turned to his team. What about the orbital fleet, the one buried after the wars? Ortiz looked up sharply. You mean the Valkyrie project? He nodded. Last I heard, there were 3 ships still intact in the Nevada hangars. Ortiz's eyes widened. The Valkyries were experimental human warships built before space travel became too costly. They were designed for deep orbit and combat that they'd never been launched, but if even one was still functional, it could get them to that alien hub. Without wasting time, they packed what little gear they had and began their journey south. It took them days of walking through shattered highways and silent ruins. The world was a graveyard of steel and smoke. The air smelled of ozone and death. They passed through cities turned to glass, forests burned to ash, oceans that glowed faintly blue under alien light. Along the way, more survivors joined them. Some were soldiers, some were engineers, some were just civilians with nothing left to lose. They followed Hale and Ortiz because they needed leaders, and because for the first time, someone had given them a reason to fight back. By the time they reached Nevada, their small group had grown into a full unit of resistance fighters. They found the hangar hidden beneath the desert sands, massive steel doors half buried under debris. Hale and Ortiz worked together to force them open, revealing a dark chamber that stretched for miles. Inside, 3 enormous ships stood silent and dust-covered, their hulls gleaming faintly under the faint emergency lights. The Valkyries, each one was nearly a kilometer long, built for war that humanity had never fought. Ortiz ran her hand along the cold metal. They are beautiful, she whispered. Hale grinned. Let's wake them up. They spent days restoring power using scavenged generators and analog systems. The first ship, Valkyrie 1, came to life with a deep rumble, its engines glowing faint blue. Ortiz and a group of engineers worked day and night to repair its main systems, while Hale trained new recruits to operate its weapons and controls. Then one night, as Ortiz monitored the ship's power grid, she noticed something strange. An alien signal faintly embedded in the Valkyrie's communication core. It was dormant, hidden deep within the system's code. She dug deeper and froze. The signal wasn't alien at all. It was human. It carried General Crane's encryption. Impossible, she whispered. She traced the origin of the code and found something terrifying. The Valkyrie project had been compromised long before the invasion began. Each ship contained a hidden beacon that transmitted human data directly to the aliens. Crane hadn't just betrayed Earth, he had prepared it for surrender. Ortiz immediately shut down the system and ran to Hale's quarters. She burst through the door, breathless. They can track us, the ships. They have transmitters hidden inside. Crane planted them before the invasion. Hale's face darkened. Can you disable them? I can try, but it's deep. It's in the ship's DNA core. If I mess it up, the whole system could collapse. Hale thought for a moment, then nodded. Do it. We'll hold them off if they come. Ortiz went back to the control chamber and began working. She bypassed security layers, scrambled encryption, and finally reached the main core. The alien network started to react. The sky above the desert began to glow, and the low hum returned, shaking the air. They knew. Alien ships appeared in orbit minutes later, descending fast like falling stars. Hale's soldiers rushed to defensive positions, firing missiles and railguns from old turrets scavenged from the hangar walls. The battle was brutal, the air filled with smoke and fire as alien drones swarmed the desert. Ortiz finally broke the encryption and slammed a command into the core. Now, she shouted. The Valkyrie's engines roared to life fully this time, a deep thunder rolling across the desert as energy surged through the ship. The alien beacon burned out, its signal severed. Hale grabbed a headset. Everyone inside. We're taking her up. As the ramp closed behind the last of the resistance fighters, the Valkyrie lifted off, pushing through the smoke and fire into the night sky. The ground below trembled as alien ships gave chase. For the first time since the invasion began, a human warship was rising again into the stars. Ortiz stood on the command deck beside Hale as Earth shrank behind them. Half shrouded in red light, she whispered, "We're coming for you, Crane." Hale looked ahead at the dark horizon where the alien hub waited beyond Neptune. Then let's finish this. The Valkyrie 1 roared through the upper atmosphere, its engines blazing like blue suns behind it. The Earth fell away beneath them, A wounded world glowing red and gray, the alien ship swarmed after them in formation, sleek black blades slicing through the clouds. The chase had begun. Captain Hale gripped the command rail as the ship shook under enemy fire. "Shields at 60%, shouted one of the crew members. Ortiz's hands flew across the control panels. "I'm rerouting power from the lower decks to propulsion. We can't take them head-on, not yet." The ship groaned as plasma bolts struck its hull, lighting up the interior with flashes of white fire. Hale's soldiers, now a full crew, worked desperately to hold their positions. The Valkyrie was massive, but it was still new to them. They were learning how to fly her while under attack. "Get us above orbit," Hale barked. "Once we're clear of gravity, we'll jump." The ship broke through the final layer of clouds, bursting into the cold silence of space. Earth spun below them, scarred and burning. Dozens of alien cruisers followed, forming a dark ring around the planet like vultures circling a dying beast. Ortiz locked in the coordinates she had stolen, the alien command hub beyond Neptune. Engaging quantum drive in 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched into long streaks of light, and the ship vanished into the void. Silence. Inside the Valkyrie, everyone stood still, holding their breath. The engines hummed softly, stable again. They were in deep space now, beyond the moon, beyond Mars, heading toward the dark edge of the solar system. Hale let out a slow breath. "We made it." Ortiz checked her readings. "For now, but they'll follow. They always do." The ship drifted through the black sea of stars for hours. Broken satellites, shattered human ships, and fragments of alien debris floated past like ghosts from old wars. The crew repaired damaged systems, tended to the wounded, and stared silently through the observation windows at the endless dark. Then Ortiz noticed something strange. The navigation system began to flicker. Static. The coordinate sheet entered was shifting, slowly, like something was pulling them off course. She frowned. "That's not possible. The drive shouldn't alter mid-flight." Hale walked up beside her. "Talk to me, Doctor." She pointed at the map on the screen. "Something's interfering with our trajectory. It's like a signal, stronger than anything I've seen. It's calling us." Before Hale could answer, the ship's lights flickered. The crew felt a deep vibration through the floor, as if something enormous was moving just beyond the hull. Then the stars outside disappeared. The Valkyrie had entered a void darker than space itself. No light. No reflection. Just endless black. The instruments went blind. The sensors screamed with static. "Is this the hub?" Hale whispered. Ortiz stayed at the screen. "No, this is something else." A low sound began to echo through the ship. A pulse, deep and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. It wasn't mechanical. It was alive. Then, out of the dark, lights began to appear, hundreds of them, tiny blue orbs floating in formation. Surrounding the Valkyrie, the crew held their breath as the orbs pulsed brighter and began to shift shape. They weren't lights, they were drones, organic, alive, and watching. The comms crackled, and a familiar voice filled the bridge. "Welcome, humans." Everyone froze. It was General Crane. His image appeared on the central display, his face calm, his eyes glowing faint blue. "You've come far," he said softly. "But this isn't your war anymore. You can't win against gods." Hale clenched his jaw. "We've killed your gods before, General. We'll do it again." Crane smiled sadly. "You still don't understand. They didn't come to destroy humanity. They came to upgrade it. You are the seed of what comes next." Ortiz slammed a hand against the console. "You sold us out for that. For extinction." Crane tilted his head. "Extinction? No. Ascension. The old world must die for the new to rise. You'll see soon." The signal cut out. Outside, the drones began to merge, forming a massive structure, an enormous ring of blue light that wrapped around the Valkyrie. The ship trembled as energy surged through space. Ortiz's screen lit up with data. "They're generating a gravitational field. They're trying to trap us." "Not today," Hale barked. "Fire all weapons." The Valkyrie's cannons ignited, sending streaks of plasma into the void. The blue ring cracked and flared, the shockwave throwing the ship off balance. Hale's crew shouted as systems overloaded and alarms screamed. "Hold her steady," Hale yelled. Ortiz's fingers flew across the console. I'm overcharging the reactor. If we push the core to full capacity, we can break the field, but it'll burn the engines. Do it. The ship roared as the engines reached their limits. The walls shook, metal groaning under the strain. The blue ring shattered, and the Valkyrie shot forward into open space again, fire trailing from its engines. When the light cleared, they saw it. The alien hub. It floated above the icy orbit of Neptune, a colossal sphere of black and blue metal, pulsing like a living heart. Massive tendrils stretched from it, connecting to distant ships and satellites. It wasn't just a station. It was alive. Ortiz whispered, "That's it. That's where they control everything." Hale looked out at the alien world before them, jaw set. Then that's where it ends. But deep inside the hub, unseen by human eyes, something vast was waking up. Something older than the aliens themselves. Something that had been waiting since the beginning of time. And it had just noticed the Valkyrie.